Hi friends, welcome to Dream Job online classes. Today we're discussing about the synchronous motors. It is very important topic in RRB, ALP, CBT2. Those who are electrical trade, it is a very important topic, and also SSC JE electrical trade, also important bits. First we are going to the bits one by one. A synchronous motor can be started by here giving option pony motor, DC compound motor, providing damper winding, any of this. A synchronous motor can be started by pony motor, DC compound motor, providing damper winding. These all three are right. And next question. A pony motor is basically a small induction motor. A pony motor is basically a small induction motor. Synchronous motor are generally not self-starting because synchronous motor are generally not self-starting because of the direction of instantaneous torque reverse after half cycle. The direction of instantaneous torque reverse after half cycle. In case of one phase of three-phase synchronous motor is short circuited, the motor will be. In case one phase of three-phase synchronous motor is short circuited, the motor will be not start. A synchronous motor can develop synchronous torque. A synchronous motor can develop synchronous torque only at synchronous speed. A three-phase synchronous motor will have two slip rings. A three-phase synchronous motor will have two slip rings. Under which of the following conditions hunting of synchronous motor is likely to occur? Under which of the following condition hunting of synchronous motor is likely to occur? Periodic variation of loads. When the excitation of an unloaded silent pole synchronous motor suddenly gets disconnected, the motor stop. When V is the applied voltage, then the breakdown torque of a synchronous motor varies is. When V is applied voltage, then the breakdown torque of synchronous motor varies is V. The power developed by synchronous motor will be maximum when the load angle is 90 degrees. A synchronous motor can be used as a synchronous capacitor when it is over excited. Synchronous motor is running on a load with normal excitation. Now if the load and motor is increased, then it is power factor will decreases and armature current will increases. Mostly synchronous motors are of silent pole type machines. Synchronous motors are of silent pole type of machines. And overexcited synchronous motor takes leading current. The synchronous motor is not inherently self-starting because a synchronous motor is not inherently self-starting because of the force required to accelerate the rotor to synchronous speed is an instant is absent. As the load applied to a synchronous motor, the motor takes more armature current because of the rotor is shifting its phase backward cause motor to take more current. Synchronous motor always run at synchronous speed. The working of synchronous motor is similar to transmission of mechanical power by shaft. The minimum armature current of the synchronous motor corresponding to operation at unity power factor. The minimum armature current of the synchronous motor corresponding to operation at unity power factor. In a synchronous motor, the magnitude of starter back EMF and depends on DC excitation only. If load or torque angle of 4-pole synchronous motor is 6 degrees electrical, its value of mechanical degree is 3. For V curve of synchronous motor, the graph is drawn between field current and armature current. The back EMF of synchronous motor depends on load angle. The back EMF of synchronous motor depends on load angle. A synchronous motor can operate at lagging, leading and unity power factor. A synchronous motor can operate at lagging, leading and unity power factor. In a synchronous motor, which loss varies with load? Which loss varies with load? Copper loss. In synchronous motor can be made self-starting by providing here none of this. The oscillations in a synchronous motor can be damped out by the oscillations in a synchronous motor can be damped out by providing damper bars in the rotating poles. The percentage slip in case of synchronous motor is 0. The shaft of synchronous motor is made of mild steel. When the field of synchronous motor is under excited, the power factor will be lagging. The speed of regulations of synchronous motor is always 0. The speed of regulation of synchronous motor is always 0. The operating speed of synchronous motor can be changed to new fixed value by changing frequency. A synchronous motor will always stop when excitation winding gets disconnected. Running in synchronous motors takes place when load varies. When load of an over-excited or under-excited synchronous motor is increases, rate of change of its armature current is compared with that of power factor is less. The rotor copper losses in a synchronous motor are met by DC source. The maximum power developed in a synchronous motor occurs at coupling angle of 90 degrees. The maximum power developed in a synchronous motor occurs at a coupling angle of 90 degrees. When a starting winding are connected in such a fashion that number of poles are made half, the speed of the rotor of a synchronous motor is increases to 2 times the original value. In which of the following motor the starter and rotor magnetic field rotate at the same speed? Synchronous motor. Which of the following motor starter and rotor magnetic field rotate same speed is synchronous motor. Synchronizing power of a synchronous motor is inversely proportional to the synchronous resistance. Synchronous motors are not self-starting motors. The standard full load power factor rating of synchronous motors are say unity or 0.8 leading. A synchronous motor running with normal excitation adjusted to load increases essentially by increasing in armature current. A synchronous motor has better power factor as compared to the equivalent induction motor. This is mainly because of starter supply is not required to produce magnetic field. A synchronous motor working at leading power factor can be used as phase advancer. Slip rings are usually made of brass and steel. An over excited by synchronous motor is used for power factor Correction. When the voltage applied to synchronous motor is increases, which of the following will reduce? Say none of this. The efficiency of properly designed synchronous motor will usually fall in range of sorry to limit the operating temperature, an electrical machine should have proper current rating. Slip rings in a synchronous motor carry direct current. A synchronous machine with large air gap is a higher value of stability limit, a small value of inherent regulation, a higher synchronizing power which makes the machine less sensitive to load variation. The armature current of the synchronous motor has higher value for high excitation only, low excitation only. In a synchronous motor running with fixed excitation, when the load is increased 3 times, its torque angle becomes approximately thrice. The angle between the rotating starter flux and rotor poles is called angle torque. Which of the following method is used starting a synchronous motors? It's a damper winding in conjunction with star delta starter. When the rotor speed in a synchronous machine becomes more than the synchronous speed during hunting, the damper bars develop induction generator torque. An important advantage of synchronous motor over wound round induction motor is that its power factor may be varied. It will. Power factor of synchronous motor is unity when armature current is minimum. Change of DC excitation of a synchronous motor changes power factor of power drawn by the motor. When starting of synchronous motor by induction motor action, field winding is short circuited by low resistance. Which of the following motor will be used in electric clocks? DC synchronous motor. Stability of synchronous machines. Stability of it increases with increases in excitation. The power factor of synchronous motor is better than the induction motor because of starter supply is relieved of responsibility of producing magnetic field. In one phase of three-phase synchronous motor is short circuited motor. This will refuse to start. If the field circuit of unloaded silent pole synchronous motor gets suddenly open circuited, then the motor stop. In which of the following motor the starter and rotor field rotate simultaneously? This is a synchronous motor. The speed of synchronous motor always remains constant. A rotary converter can also be run as a synchronous motor. Which of the following resistance can be measured by the conducting insulation resistance test of synchronous motor? Is face-to-face winding resistance, starter winding earth frame, rotor winding to earth shaft. Due to which of the following reasons synchronous motor fails to pull into synchronism after applying DC field current is low field current. The maximum speed variation in a three-phase synchronous motor is 0. Okay friends, thank you very much. Is a completely covered in all topics in synchronous motor. And for more videos, thank you for more videos.